Well, happy Saturday, everyone. The rain has stopped where I am currently, so it's a nice evening. We've got another Space Media podcast. It's been a while since the last one, but we're all still here and still alive.
Just about.
Yeah. As we move ever closer, potentially, hopefully, towards freedom and a COVID-free UK. Well, as close to it as possible.
It's getting there.
Yeah. So we thought for this week, rather than talk about lack of work or COVID or anything particularly depressing, we'd do another type of depressing and talk about lessons we had to learn the hard way, whilst hopefully providing some entertainment and some funny stories that, fingers crossed, won't be too relatable to anyone listening, but they very well might be. So who wants to kick us off?
Do you know what? I think it's your turn, Max. It's normally me.
My turn.
Go for it, Max.
I feel like it's your turn to start.
What lesson did you have to learn the hard way?
I don't really have a specific example of it because it's something I've learned the hard way multiple times and decided not to learn. And that's, I think I've learned now. I've learned it too many times. And that's just audio when you're doing videos. Just making sure you have backups and making sure you have a wireless system.
I have specific examples of you doing that, Max, so
okay,
I wouldn't worry too much about it.
You can share that.
Well, no, you did that shoot recently, didn't you? The cooking one, I think, was one of the ones. That was, if you wanted to talk about that one.
Yeah, that was the main one. It's not like nothing embarrassing or anything. It's just really annoying because I think a lot of people, when they start filmmaking, they buy these little Zoom H1 thingies, and they're really good for what they do, but like, it's just not practical to go up to your talent and plug in your little headphones to listen, see if it sounds all right, and then press record. Like, they might hit a button or something, they might unplug it, and you just won't be able to know because, like, it's obviously a separate device to what you're recording on. So it just happens so many times where it wasn't recording, or they'd unplugged it, or it ran out of batteries, or God knows. So that's just something I've definitely learned, is these little wireless systems are an absolute godsend because you can actually hear what you're recording.
Yeah. Oh no, I totally get it. I had the Zoom H1. I think I had my Zoom H1 because I liked the look of your Zoom H1. And then we both realised pretty quickly that they weren't actually that great.
They're really good if you've got more than two brain cells.
Those little rectangle boxes that just clip on the side of your trousers.
No, they're like the ones for like interviews and journalism. Like, you plonk on the table and like you can take notes and stuff.
I know the ones.
They're like a self-contained recording.
Yeah,
they got the little prongs on top.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a tricky one because, like, when you're first looking at audio and you realise just how expensive good audio is, it's the same with like good lighting. It's one of those things that you don't want to have to pay for it, but at the same time, it ultimately is going to be one of the main things that increases.
I'd argue it's more important than a camera.
Yeah. I mean, thinking back on it, I still kind of wish that there was a system. I mean, there might be one that exists. If there is, please let me know, because it sounds great. Where you could just plug a lavalier mic into talent's phone and get that stream straight into camera, because ultimately every talent has a smartphone now, whether it be an iPhone or a Samsung or something that's going to record decent audio, and it would just make life so much easier if you could plug straight into their phone, clip that on, and then have that sync into camera. But there's just nothing out there that does that. So then it becomes a case of having to spend money on things like lavalier mics and pack mics, and they're not cheap.
I think those Rode Wireless Go's that were released like last year, I think they're literally revolutionary.
Yeah, I mean, I paid like 200 and something for mine.
And they're just as good as the like Sennheiser things. Yeah. Maybe the range isn't as good as the Sennheiser things, but
they're smaller and they're compact and they fit in your back pocket. And you don't have to worry about batteries. They're USB charged, and they're just great. And obviously Rode's brought out the new version of them now, which is actually they've kind of dominated the game with them because they now do absolutely everything you want. But yeah, I guess ultimately it comes down to money, doesn't it? When you're starting out, £200 on audio is a big investment for someone who struggled to spend £500 on a camera, you know?
Yeah, you think camera, I've got it all. And you really do not. Camera, when you think about it, just buying a body is sometimes probably the cheapest bit of your investment, because especially the amount of stuff you've got, Josh. Imagine the camera's the cheapest thing. But
I think if you look at my rig and all the things on it, I think that definitely is all accounts to more than the actual camera that it's surrounding. But yeah, but no, if that phone idea exists, please let me know.
I mean,
that sounds great.
That does sound cool. The problem with that is you have to fiddle with your client's phone.
Yeah.
And get them to download an app. Their phone has to be compatible.
Yeah.
Sorry to crush your dreams, but
yeah. Yeah.
I think it's gonna be one of them things. It's where the more you spend, there it is, and it's never gonna swap. It's never gonna be the other way around.
No. I guess the other thing along the audio line, Max, is things like sync claps. I mean, that's something that we still struggle with now, much to Sam's dismay.
Yeah, but much to my disappointment.
Yeah, like
there was a good example the other day, Josh. There was footage, and you went, "Oh, sync clap for Sam," in the audio, and went, "Oh, I've already stopped recording. We'll have fun, Sam."
Yeah, I remembered the sync clap after I'd stopped recording, and then just sort of went, "Oh, yeah." Because as soon as you stop recording, that's it. There's no chance.
There's no going back.
But it's and again, it's a lesson you should learn really when you do buy those Zoom H1s, I guess, Max, because they're not going to be synced into your camera audio, so you should be doing sync claps from the get-go. But...
Well, like I said, it's fine having separate audio. I mean, that's what they do on big boy sets, but you just need to have more than 2 brain cells to rub together to remember to actually use it properly.
Yeah, or invest in a timecode sync, which is another piece of kit and another big lump of money. But
it's the ultimate thing as well. It's like, what do you worry about, sync clapping or like everything that's happening in front of you? Especially where we're a small team, we've got quite a lot going on sometimes. But please, Josh, keep recording next time.
Yeah, I guess hiring a sound guy is always at the bottom of the list. Yeah,
that's always a bonus.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing, Max. That's some dark times there. Sam, do you want to hit us with yours?
So I don't know how much you guys can relate to this because it's sort of more on the editing side, but a lesson I've had to learn twice now, I don't know how I didn't learn from the first time, is having your autosave on a different drive to the one you're actually working on. So it's basically, I think it's about a year ago now, I had a project where it was just some standard filming, a little short film. Spent ages editing it, and basically the drive just corrupted. All the footage was backed up on their end, but all of my autosaves and my projects were all saved on the same drive. So it just meant I just lost everything because I didn't save it anywhere else. So I mean, I literally had to completely restart the project. And it also happened again recently on a little project I'd done. But I found out the best thing to do now, instead of putting on another drive, is put it onto the cloud. But that's something I did not enjoy because I basically just lost 2 weeks worth of paid work because I had to spend another 2 weeks editing it for free. So that's something that isn't fun.
Yeah, that's
not
painful.
Fun.
Yeah, I mean, autosave files are so small, but when you first start doing your project management and like your file management, it's kind of the last thing that's in your head because you're thinking.
And I didn't really think about the fact that I had autosave on, but it's in the same place. Yeah. So, in my mind, I was like, oh, they're there, so I can go back to it if I absolutely wreck this project for some reason or it corrupts. But I didn't think of it as if the hard drive goes, that's all I've got.
Yeah. And that's pretty painful.
But that's my painful experience.
Yeah, but, I'm paranoid with my backups, but I still somehow managed to lose files to corruption.
See, touch wood, I've never had that issue. Now that I've said that, you're going to just hear me go.
It's going to happen tomorrow.
As my drive dies and everything dies
Everything's
with
gonna
it.
die in one go.
Yeah, and I'd never learn my lesson because everything I have is on OneDrive currently. There's no cloud backup of it, and
That
I don't have
scares
another
me.
drive.
Good job we've got your cloud backups.
Yeah, yeah,
I am your.
I've got cloud
backup, Josh.
backups of our recent shoot,
yeah.
and no, I don't even need it.
Well, there you
I'm
go.
just that paranoid.
That's my my failsafe then. Is you guys. Maybe you should not look after me as much, and I'll have to learn my lesson.
Yeah, I think another thing that I will struggle with, and I think you'll agree, Josh, is learning like about contracts and like the best way to do it. Because like when I first started off as well, I wasn't given contracts; it was just all word of mouth, and it was sort of like doing me over a little bit because they just kept giving me feedback and kept coming back for changes, but I wasn't getting paid for any of that because nothing was in writing. And I think that learning curve of contracts is definitely a big thing.
Yeah, I suppose that I've always done quite a lot of the boring admin side of some of the stuff that we do, and especially some of the stuff I've had to do. And doing things like contracts was quite a big learning curve, and it's still a learning curve. I don't think that ever kind of goes away because there's always some like a project you'll be working on that you'll use a contract for. Like, you know, you'll have a contract template and you'll try and apply it and you'll realize that there's something that's not there that actually you should have had there for the last 5 years.
Yep.
But you only kind of realize once it comes up in conversation, or fingers crossed, hopefully, you know, it doesn't come back and bite you. But yeah, it is a really tricky one. And especially I find that within our industry, it's really hard to find solicitors who specialize in entertainment. Not specifically entertainment as a general sector, but more sort of corporate stuff that we kind of do. Like film and TV, absolutely covered, but where we don't do specifically film or TV, it's quite difficult to apply those same principles. And it's kind of been just a case of looking at what other people are doing and learning from it. And it's always a tricky one with contracts, and it is quite a big learning curve. Yeah, it's giving me PTSD now. I feel like I'm in a Saving Private Ryan.
Have you had any examples of where there was a clause in your contract that you really needed that you didn't have?
I mean, Sam's one's pretty good. The changes is always one that revisions as its most sort of
it's
common
stung
name.
me a few times that I've got on my contracts. I discuss revisions with them.
It's a really hard one because it does vary from client to client. You could have a client that's really on it, really professional. They'll come back with maybe one A4 doc of changes. You'll get it done and you'll never hear from them again in terms of changes. They'll just say, great, that's everything we needed. But then you'll have that client who's not really done it before, doesn't really understand the editing process, and they'll come back at you with one change at a time for 2 months, and it just becomes endlessly infuriating because if it's a change that was already there, then why haven't they already? I don't know. But then the client comes back and says, "Oh, I didn't spot it then, and it's only after I watched it." Or my mum's friend's gran spotted it and said, "This looks weird." It's an ongoing battle, isn't it?
I've actually had that before. I sent a video off and they went, "Oh, I was just showing this to my daughter and her friend's mum." And I was like, "Excuse me."
Oh God, yeah. No, well, I guess my lesson that I've had to learn the hard way is, I guess when to say no to stuff is always a pretty difficult lesson to learn. Whether it's kind of a general one, but I'll sort of give a few examples. So when to say no to work is a really difficult lesson to learn, because especially when you're starting out, you just want to say yes to everyone. You'll want to say yes, like,
definitely.
Yeah, I can do that for you. Yeah, sure, let me get that done for you. Someone could come to me asking me to do a live stream project, and in a past life I might have said, yeah, sure, let me do that, when in actuality I've not got the right kit for it, I've not got the right expertise, I might not have the right software, and ultimately it might be a case of I invest in all those things for one project, But as soon as that project's over, I might never touch that work for a year. And ultimately, it means that I've invested in all of this stuff, and I'm not actually getting any kind of ROI on it because I did it for that one gig, and that was a one-off. And there are times where that's the complete opposite, and it might be that you branch out into an area and find that you can consistently push for work and keep getting work in that. But there is a right time to say no to it. Free work is the big one. I think the bane of this industry, and where we don't have strong unions, and the law's always been pretty murky around entertainment and creative arts.
Yeah.
Working for free runs rampant in our industry. It affects everyone from university graduates to people who are just starting out in the industry looking to get a foothold. And employers really do exploit it, and casting really does exploit it, because ultimately a lot of people's mental processes, well, if I can get someone for free that's going to do an okay job compared to paying for someone who's going to do a great job, a lot of people will just say, oh, I'd rather have the person that's okay, and
But
I'd rather
Josh,
get it for
it's
free.
good for your portfolio.
Yeah, and that's what you always hear. It's good. It's
That
good
is the
exposure.
classic.
It could lead to more work down the line, and I've done free work and had paid work off the back of it, and in those situations, that's great. But ultimately, looking back on it, it still doesn't excuse it, and it doesn't make it right.
Because it's not to say you wouldn't have got something else or different work, or
Exactly.
even that job that was paid. No one should have to work for free at the end of the day. But
No.
they
I
seem
think
to think
I think the
we're-
only reason you should work for free is if you actively want to.
Yeah,
And you actively want to do them a favour.
Yeah, like
Yeah, especially
voluntary work,
charity work as well.
There's a lot of free charity work out there, and if you're in a position where you have the free time and you want to give something back, and ultimately doing some work for a charity is going to be your way of doing that, absolutely fantastic. But if you're being brought on as a runner on a shoot that can't afford to pay you, and yet everyone else is getting paid, you need to stop and think, well, can they really afford to have a runner then?
Yeah.
That's the thing. If they're making money off the back of your work you're doing for free, they should pay you.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be any situation where they're profiting from your generosity, really. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's just not
Yeah.
how it should work.
I think that's the line.
Yeah. And there's also I know there's a lot of, uni projects where students will get some form of budget together and try and offer some money to some of the crew, and maybe get some other people to come in for free. And they're always tricky ones as well, because you want to help students out, but at the same time, there are some instances, especially, and it comes a lot with passion projects as well. Like, if you've got a passion project and you need a runner and you can't afford to pay for a runner, then you're probably better off finding someone who is a friend that you can actually train to do those jobs on set, rather than trying to get someone who's desperate for work to come and work for you for free and spend money on their travel and getting there, because it just devalues the industry, in my opinion, and it just doesn't reflect well on anyone. And it's even worse when you see the big studios doing it, obviously.
Yeah.
There was all that stuff with Britain's Got Talent and some of these other big shows where they're forcing people to pay for even things like accommodation. But it is an issue, and ultimately it won't get sorted until there are proper unions across the industry. But it's just difficult, because where we're, especially now, where we fit into so many categories, one day I could be an editor, another day I could be a drone operator, and another day I could be a sound op on a set. You never know. How do you categorize those people into unions and make sure that they get even representation when they could be changing roles so frequently? And I think that's always kind of been the problem.
I think it's always going to be a struggle. I think there's never going to be a time where media isn't looked at as free work. I think it's because it's a creative thing, so people see it as almost like we're having fun. So they're like, why would we pay them for that? But it's not really how it works.
Yeah. And the other time I think it's good to say no is when investing in yourself as well. And that's kind of feeding off the back of what I was saying about buying equipment for certain jobs. Like, if you're taking home £1,000 a month from your freelance work, and you're spending every single paycheck you get on equipment, then the problem you've got is that you're getting new equipment, and it might be allowing you to do some jobs that you couldn't do before, but ultimately you're still not turning a profit. And you have to sometimes stop and have a look and think, actually, what do I need to do the job that I'm doing? Because there'll always be kit that you need. There'll always be kit that you want. For any of us, whether it's photography, videography, drone operation, editing, sound, whatever it is that you do, there'll always be new kit and there'll always be things that you want. But ultimately, it becomes a case of you have to be disciplined enough with yourself to say, no, I need to actually be smart with this. And the way I always look at it, I look at it as as return on investment. So I know that if I spend a bit more money on a good lens, that lens could potentially last me for years at a time. But if I'm spending money on a cheap lens with no stabilization, with a lot of aberration, and it's not very sharp, then I'm probably not going to keep it very long. But I also know that that lens is going to devalue really quickly, and I'll probably not be able to get anything back for it. So it's also about what you invest in and how you invest in it. Lenses have always been kind of, especially in the camera world, heralded, I guess, and Max, you'll know this, is like, it's the one thing you invest in that you could actually end up potentially gaining money on in the long term rather than losing money on it.
I think there's a balance even with lenses. Yeah. Like, I've got a lens for my new camera that I'm not sure was a good investment yet. Like, some things are really hard to tell before you buy them. Yeah. And especially cameras, I would say, is the main thing. Whatever camera you buy now, it won't increase in value as time goes on, unless you're buying like a really fantastic Alexa.
I feel like it's like buying a TV. Like, the second you walk out the store with that TV, there is already new tech and already new stuff in other cameras.
The depreciation should really be a massive consideration. Like, everything's going to decrease in value. It's got to be worth what you paid for it on that day. Exactly. Not what you paid minus what you sell it for. Yeah,
but at the same time, it's the buying decision of, like, if you're pretty confident that 99% of the content that you're filming and outputting, clients only want HD and some clients want 4K, do you really need to go out and buy a 12K camera and spend £30,000 on it? And at the same time, if 99% of the work that you're putting out is going out on Facebook, Instagram, and like TikTok, do you really need a Red or an Arri for that kind of content? Or could you get away with using something like a Blackmagic or just a Canon or a Sony? Because ultimately you need to have a look at what content you're putting out. It's the same, for an editor. If you're only editing HD content and your files are no bigger than 100 meg,
you get a 10 grand rig easy.
Yeah. You don't need it. You don't need to invest in 4K monitors, and build a £10,000 PC from scratch. Because ultimately, by the time that you might have paid off what you've spent, the technology,
you need to upgrade again.
Yeah, you'll need to upgrade again, because I always say the same thing with these 12K cameras that are coming out now. I love Blackmagic, and having an Ursa 12K sounds fantastic, but by the time that I actually come around to need that 12K, the other 12K cameras that will have existed at that point will be far superior and probably won't be as expensive as the 12K is now, because it'll be more standardized.
I'm scared for 12K. I don't have the hard drive space for that.
You'll have crystal drives. I guarantee we'll have crystal drives by then. That technology is... Yeah, have you not seen that? Southampton University, they're developing the crystal drives.
That's
No,
not.
it's what is it?
I
like
think I've
something-
heard of that.
Yeah, so
It's not
It
for
sounds like
consumers,
something out
though,
of
is it?
Star Trek.
well, it will be eventually. Yeah, it literally is based on the concept of Star Trek. I'm probably going to sound
Oh.
really wrong for anyone that actually knows what what this is. But so basically, the whole argument is that obviously it was all pushed by Microsoft because a lot of big companies are still storing hard data on tape because it's still the one medium that can't deteriorate over time.
It's cost effective as well.
Yeah, but it's not space effective because data on tape takes up a lot of space. So like, yeah, Microsoft apparently has like warehouses full of information stored on tape that they're kind of getting a bit annoyed with because, I don't know, I guess the admin's pretty awful on that. And because obviously solid state drives are still kind of the go-to now for digital storage. Not digital storage, but you know what I mean, storage. But there's still a point of failure in them. They still can corrupt and fail. And that's the worry for a lot of people. And obviously, just normal hard drives will always fail eventually because there's anything with a moving part will always fail. It's kind of like the laws of...
Yeah, it's just how it works, isn't it?
Yeah. So what they're developing is these new crystal drives, which are basically like, you know, like when you got those really faddy glass cubes that had like an engraving inside them that looked 3D. And you get them from like Blue Water or a shopping centre and they look really faddy and no one ever bought one.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that. So they're basically using lasers to store data on these like crystal glass, just tiny little pieces of like, you know, we're talking like 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters, and they've got like one which already has the Holy Bible on it, and that was like their pièce de résistance. But I think Microsoft have pledged like multiple billions to Southampton University to push this project forward, in the hopes that will kind of be the future, because obviously glass and crystal or whatever it is, it doesn't deteriorate and it's tiny.
So I think that was the main thing with that project, was that even tape over 50 years or whatever will deteriorate. Like you'll lose data, but crystal you won't. It'll be it's really slow to read and write crystal, so it's meant for like long-term archives and backups.
But because I guess that's the most difficult. That's the bit that I can't kind of comprehend, is the reading and the writing part. Because for me, it's like you're taking something that's almost organic and putting it in something that's inorganic. And it's like cybernetics. I just don't get how it can work together.
It's above our pay grade right there. That's what
yeah, exactly. But I do totally see it eventually becoming the norm. And it sounds pretty cool to have like, I've got my crystal drive installed on my PC here.
Just don't let the sunshine through it, so I don't set fire to your house.
Yeah, I can imagine that. That'd be pretty. Yeah, but that's the other thing. Like, obviously, they don't get. I suppose that they're more resistant to heat as well. Because like, what's the melting point of glass? It's something ridiculous, isn't it?
Pretty hard.
But yeah,
just run After Effects.
That was
for
a tangent.
Days.
That was a tangent. That was a good tangent. So basically, what we're saying is, don't invest in anything until crystal drives exist. That's the moral of the whole podcast.
Good idea.
And I promise we're not sponsored by Southampton University.
Yeah, or Microsoft, or crystals in general.
I've just remembered I have a list of... Can we swear? Are we swearing?
I don't know.
Shit. Yes.
Okay. I have a list of shit we learned the hard way.
Oh, okay.
I just remembered I wrote up a list of that a couple of months ago. There's only 2 things on it so far, so I can add to it after this podcast.
You're doing well. 2 things.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
One of them is make sure you charge for pre-production. That actually kind of leads on from the working for free thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we had a big project recently, and we didn't budget in for pre-production, and to say the least, we weren't.
I think there's a time and a place. You don't
Yeah, but
Like
There's
it's
a
one of those
time and
things
a
where
place.
sometimes you can charge. You got to let things go. In that
Yeah,
instance, we had to let it go to
we did
because we wanted the
spend
project.
basically 3 days solid working
Yeah.
on
All
pre-production.
of us. So 9 days of payment. Just
Yeah,
none.
yeah.
But it's okay. We move on.
Yeah, that was a weekend I'll never get back.
And the other
one?
thing was make friends with people who have big houses. I can't remember what the story was.
I remember that was now. So basically, yeah, it was for a recent project that we did. We had to use one of our houses for the project because it's quite difficult booking studios at the moment with COVID and everything.
It was very fitting to the project as well.
Yeah, and also like booking house studios or like show homes to film in is even more expensive than booking just a normal studio. And the easiest thing you can do is just to actually have a friend that has a big, nice house that you can politely ask to use in those situations. So I think that was what you were referring to there, Max. I mean, I live near enough to Surrey. Maybe I should go and socialise with the
you should
the elite.
go be a socialite and
Actually, that being said,
mingle.
You live near enough to Windsor, which is go give Windsor Castle a knock. See if they're about.
All right, I'll go make friends with Charles and see if he's got any room for us.
I'm sure they're looking to make as many friends as they can at the moment.
Yeah.
Cool. All right then, guys. Well, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. If you have graced us with your presence on this podcast and you've enjoyed what you've listened to, why don't you drop us a message? Let us know any lessons that you learned the hard way. As I'm sure everyone probably has at least one that we haven't mentioned. And Sam and Max, thank you very much. And
It's been a pleasure.
No worries.
Lovely.
And we'll see you guys real soon.